Coming up this week on Cruisin'.
It was one of the first that was built in Cleveland, Ohio.
This week, it's the Cleveland All-Stars.
This is a 1924 Cleveland motorcycle.
And motorcycles, too.
We'd really like to find out where this car was built and who built it, making it up like a speedster from different types of cars.
The search continues for the origin of this incredibly unique Peerless. Now that's a purple car.
Heliotrope and Amaranth.
And I thought it was purple.
You know, it's a horseless carriage, so it's the only thing missing is the horse.
Yeah, I was wondering where that went. This week, it's cars made in Cleveland, Ohio.
That's exactly right.
Cruisin' Cleveland style starts now.
I find that quite amazing, yeah.
This week on Cruise In, we're on the campus of Ursuline College, and we're going to take a little trip back into time when Cleveland was one of the richest cities in America because they had 80+ car manufacturers. I'm Will Burge, and this week we're checking out the Cleveland All-Stars. There's plenty of cars to see, so let's get started. All right, Ann, you got a Stearns here. This is a pretty rare car, isn't it?
Oh, I don't know that it's so rare, but it was one of the first that was built in Cleveland, Ohio.
And you have a special family connection to these, correct?
Yes, my grandfather built, I don't know how many cars at the turn of the century in Cleveland.
And do you have memories of that? Do you remember?
Oh,
being
yes,
a kid?
remember it well. He was a great pal. He and I were great pals. He was a little eccentric, but we had a good time together.
So how many of these have you had?
Well, we've had about 18, and I'm the only girl in the family, and we wanted desperately to have some cars in the family. And so we've had quite a few, and we've tried to make them known throughout the United States and taken the cars to a lot of shows. So I just hope people remember the name Stearns.
And how many years have you had it?
Since about 1980.
Oh, wow. And have you been driving it ever since then?
Oh, yes. You have to drive it. They're no fun if you don't drive them.
That's the best part, right?
Right, it is the best part.
So when you're riding around in this, what kind of looks do you get? What do people do? Do people point and wave?
You have to be very careful that people are paying attention to what they're driving so they don't run into you. And so it can be kind of dangerous at times.
The seats on the side, what were those? Do you know what those were for?
There's one seat behind me on the side, and it was called the mother-in-law seat. I don't really know that it was a mother-in-law seat, but when the master was driving the car, the man that usually drove the car would sit in that little seat, and he would run ahead and open the gates because they were driving across fields and not roads.
So that's only the mother-in-law seat if you have a mother-in-law that doesn't deserve to sit inside
That's
the car.
exactly right.
So this is a very luxurious car, I mean, obviously. Then.
Yes, for its price. To buy a 1911 Ford was much less than this car, which was $3,500 at the time, which was pretty darned expensive.
What's your favorite part of the car, if you had to pick one thing?
Well, I love the brass on it. I think that's kind of fun, but brass needs to be cared for all the time, so it's hard.
Well, good things require a lot of work, right?
That's right.
All right, well, Ann, I appreciate it. It's a gorgeous car, and thanks for letting us check it out.
Thank you very much.
All right, Bob, what do we got here?
This is a 1924 Cleveland motorcycle, and they made this bike from 1912 about to 1924. This is a single cylinder, and they ended up in 1925 making a 4-cylinder. This bike only goes about 30 miles an hour because it's only 3 horsepower. But the 4-cylinder broke 100 miles an hour. It was quite a fast bike, especially back in 1929. But this was very popular because it got good mileage, being a lightweight bike. And it was, I don't know the price exactly, but it was a reasonably priced bike to buy. So it was popular in its day. Today they're rather hard to find. because a lot of them just plain got worn out and abused and that sort of thing. So it's quite a collector's item today. I keep my little baby in my living room of my house, and it's just a favorite item of mine because it was made here locally.
You keep it in the living room?
Yes, I do, yeah.
Is that when you were looking for it, is that the idea?
Well, the idea is I guess I can jump on it and sit on it any time, any kind of weather, because it's always in good shape. It runs, but it's always in good shape. It's always dry and clean.
How long have you had it?
I've had it about 3 to 4 years, and I bought it from a friend of mine, and he had it for maybe 5 years before, and he ran it. He used to ride up and down his driveway. But you notice it's a little unsafe today. There's no front wheel brake. It only has a rear wheel brake, which is rather weak. I don't think I'd feel safe on it, riding it in today's streets.
You'd have to be a daredevil to take that thing out right now.
I would think so, yeah. But I just enjoy having it.
How long did you look for this before you found it?
Well, I really wanted this bike for a long time, and when Bill had it, I said, I'd like to buy it if you ever want to sell it. And he said, I'll put your name on my list. And I said, oh, that'd be great. And he says, of course, it'll be at the bottom of the list. And so that was not a great help. But my friend that owned the bikes after Bill, he was on the top of the list. So Bill sold it to my friend. And then my friend is Dave Ford. He sold it to me 3 years ago or so. So I waited a long time to get it.
Have you had to put any work into it, or is it?
No, like I say, it runs okay, but I didn't do any restoration work. The paint was good, and tires, everything was in this shape when I bought it.
Well, it's a beautiful bike, and we appreciate you showing it to us.
Well, thank you very much.
Coming up.
There weren't too many big engines that size, because you can imagine the running cost of an engine that large would be colossal, you know.
I can only imagine. Next on Cruise In. Now back to the Cleveland All-Stars on Cruise In.
All right, Ralph, either this is the world's coolest fire engine or this is something I haven't seen before. What do you got behind you?
We've got a 1912 Peerless. This is a Peerless 60 engine. It's kind of a speedster car made up of, we believe, a transaxle from a Packard and some other components. It's a fun, cool car. It's got a 3-speed gearbox in it. It's one of these types of cars that just goes, you know. It's got plenty of power, plenty of torque, so just press the accelerator pedal, doesn't matter what gear in, it's going to go.
Yeah, what's cool about this one, I thought, is when we were talking, you know, a lot of people come to car shows to tell people about their cars. You guys are kind of still trying to find out about this one.
Yeah, we'd really like to find out where this car was built and who built it, making it up like a speedster from different types of cars. So that's why we're here. We would hope to bump into somebody that could give us some history and let us know, you know, where it came from and what it is.
So was it something that the company you work for, had they been looking for this, or they just kind of stumbled back?
No, they stumbled across it. It seemed interesting to them, and that's what we've got, you know. But we would like to find out its heritage for sure.
As far as rarity, I mean, having dealt with so many cars, how would you rate the rarity of this car?
Well, I mean, it's one-off, so it's very rare. But the engine in this car is the largest production car engine in the world, and we only know of 3 other cars with this engine in them.
Yeah, the engine is gigantic. I mean,
Yeah.
were that engine on cars in this time?
Well, there were some big, I think it was equal to Packard at some point, but there weren't too many big engines that size, because you can imagine the running cost of an engine that large would be colossal, you know.
And the windshield too. The windshield is quite unique there.
Well, I think somebody came up with that idea for the speedsters, and that kind of makes it a speedster. You know, the windshield just like that is. All of the speedsters seem to have them.
It's almost like a looking glass, like a monocle they got sitting there or
yeah.
something.
It doesn't offer you a lot of protection, I'm sure.
The tires are amazing too. How old are the tires?
Well, there's no manufacturing date on the tyres, but we reckon that they're probably going to be at least 30 years old, maybe more. So it's not a good car to go beating down the highway with till the tyres are changed.
Well, we appreciate you showing us the car. It's beautiful and it's certainly interesting.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so what do we got here, Derek?
So I'm standing in front of the Crawford Auto Aviation Museum's 1907 Studebaker Garford.
So it's a little different than normal because she's not yours, but you have to take care of her, and I imagine you feel like she's yours, right?
Exactly, it is. As the curator of transportation for the museum, you know, all the vehicles in the collection are kind of under my stewardship. So you know, I take a kind of a personal attachment to them while I'm overseeing the museum.
Now, there's a lot of unique vehicles in the museum, but this one in particular is it kind of stands out, doesn't it?
Yes, yes, it is unusual. This car was actually owned by Mrs. Potter Palmer. Potter Palmer was a hotel magnate in Chicago in the early days, in the early 1900s. And she actually custom ordered this car from Studebaker, and it was painted in heliotrope and amaranth, which were her two favorite colors, which are the two purples that are on it today. Let me see if I can remember it correctly. I believe the amaranth is the overall color, and then the heliotrope are the accents.
The back is amazing to me because there's, I mean, first of all, the piping to speak to the front, you'd think you could just yell through the glass, but they were too nice to do that back in the day, I guess.
Yeah, well, because of the closed back, they had the speaking tube, so it was a little easier to talk to your driver, your chauffeur, and let them know what you wanted to do.
How fast does this go?
You're lucky if this car would top out at about 35 miles an hour.
Do you have a particular favorite part of the car yourself, something that interests you the most?
The one unique thing about this car that's kind of cool is it's actually a Landau. So actually, if you look at the back of the car, the back about quarter of the car is actually a convertible top. So over just the back seat actually folds down, but the center section actually stays closed.
And how much did something like this cost when it was first custom made?
This car originally cost about $7,000.
Wow. So I couldn't even afford it now, and this is what, how many years
basically
later?
This would be, you know, yeah, this would be like buying a Bentley or a Rolls today.
And I guess one of the more interesting is almost the chandelier, the lights on the side of it, which is amazing because you have the headlights on the front, but then the lights that hang off the side, that's kind of unique as well.
Yes, yeah, they are unique. They're kind of a carriage light, if you will, the old style carriage light. And actually, one of the things to notice is they're actually electrified. This is fairly early in the automobile industry to have electrified lighting system, which again speaks to the quality of the Studebaker Garford automobiles.
How common were these at that time? Or were these pretty rare then as well?
These were fairly rare. This car was actually custom ordered. The reason the car is at the show is actually because the chassis and the engine were actually produced here in Cleveland by the Garford company.
Well, I appreciate the time, and we love the ride. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Next up,
Tiller steering is not in anymore, except maybe on a lawnmower somewhere, but
try steering your car like this. Coming up on Cruise In. Welcome back to Cruise In.
All right, Terry, you're in the front seat of something very unique here. What do you got there?
well, it's the oldest known Packard built in Warren, Ohio in 1900, Model B, and of course steers with a spade handle steering, as they called it back then.
So what is that? Is it like a wagon? Is that how you steer it?
Yeah, it looks like a child's wagon, and it's pretty treacherous to drive down the road.
How fast does it go?
This probably 25 mile an hour.
With the steering of a wagon?
Yeah, hit a cross ditch or something like that, and it whips. It just flies back and forth. I've learned to go like this when I see it.
So how long have you had it?
About 40 years.
40 years, and how did you have to do it? Did you have to restore it yourself?
Yeah, we did most of the work ourselves. Yeah, we hire out a little bit of work on the motor part of it, bearings and bushings, but everything else we do ourselves.
Where do you find something like that?
Well, it came out of an auction up in New England from one of the earliest auto collectors, but we were able to take what was left, the engine, having the number on it, you know, number 10, the 10th Packard built in Warren. The incentive was there to get it back home, make it look like it did in 1900, so I think we've done that.
How long did it take you to restore the whole thing?
It was, in gathering parts and everything else, probably a period of about 25 years.
Wow. Wow, so is that the hardest part, is finding the parts for something
yes,
that's old?
And anything you can't find or get off of another collector that has an extra one, you make it. You have to know a man that knows how to run a machine shop.
So this is, I mean, 115 years old. What are some of the differences? I mean, obviously there's just the looks of it. What are some of the differences between this car and something you'd see on the road today?
Well, of course, its tiller steering is not in anymore, except maybe on a lawnmower somewhere, but they had so many advanced features, sometimes it's hard to say that. Automatic spark advance on this was on it in 1900.
Yeah, the headlight, is that a gas headlight, and how much light does
it
it actually
generates
give
gas, carbide, and we've never lit it up yet because we know we have to polish it after we get done. And then, of course, typical horn to get you out of the way so you won't run over. That's a polite way for ladies so they don't jump and get scared, you know. So it has a bell and a bulb horn on it.
Yeah, the engine, it was the oldest Packard engine.
It's the oldest existing Packard that was sold from the factory. The old number 1 is at Lehigh University in a glass case.
Now this is, it was made in Cleveland, but the side says New York and Ohio Company. Why does it say that?
It was built in Warren, Ohio, and that gets people confused. The New York and Ohio Company, when Mr. Packard graduated from Bethlehem, he became a plant foreman in New York City. He ended up learning the light bulb and wiring trade, which he ended up coming back to Warren and starting Packard Electric. So the New York and Ohio Company was one of the names that he used. And then it has Ohio on there too, Ohio Automobile Company. They made like the early 1901s. But this was one of the first 10 cars that was sold. They started numbering at 21, I believe. They wanted to make you think they had sold a lot of Packards. This is B30, so it's the 10th Packard.
How often do you drive it around? I mean, is it?
I've tried to drive it a fair distance, but it's wicked. If you get on a dirt road or anything like that, it has cross stitches. This just flies from side to side, and there's nothing to keep it from doing that except your knees. So you kind of raise this up when you get into bumpy roads, and it goes like that.
And how is the ride? Is it pretty bumpy, or is it?
Well, it's like riding in a carriage. You know, it's a horseless carriage, so the only thing missing is the horse. Don't forget it, the people that were buying this car in 1900 were the people that had only horses, and they either rode on the horse or in the carriage behind the horse. So here they were sitting down. When Mr. Blackmore in Painesville, Ohio went down to pick up his Packard in Warren, Ohio, they sent the plant foreman with him back to Painesville just so he could teach him how to drive it, how to shift it. You know, it was 2 speeds forward, and it all takes place on this shifter, which, if those of you walking around here notice, the pattern is the H pattern. This isn't from the 50s where you had a 4-speed with 3. This was back in 1899 that they patented it, and that patent still goes on to the best of my knowledge. I'm not sure who's the recipient of what it takes to build something with that pattern right there, exactly.
Well, it's a great ride. It's certainly a piece of history. We appreciate you showing it to us.
Well, it's fun for me. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Coming up on Cruisin'.
The more you look at this car, the more you see aviation.
Cruisin' takes flight with this rare Jordan next. Welcome back to the Cleveland All-Stars on Cruisin'.
All right, Scott and Jim, what do we got here? This is as unique as it gets, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's a 1930 Jordan Speedway Ace.
And this is a one of one, right?
It's one of 2 prototypes built in 1930.
Wow.
It's the only one known to exist.
How long have you guys had it?
About 15 years.
Oh, wow. So have you had to put a lot of work into it?
8.5 years.
Really? I can imagine the moment when that was done had to feel pretty good, or is it a continuing work all the time?
No, not now. When it was completed, it went to Pebble Beach and won at Pebble Beach.
Wow. So how do you guys take it to many shows, or is it only?
We did. We won Amelia Island, Meadowbrook, any show that it was shown in, it won Best of Show.
Wow, but it's absolutely amazing. Is there a certain part to the car, or a certain thing about it that's your favorite, that drew you to it?
A lot of favorites. It's a 4-speed transmission. It's aluminum body. It has a lot of unique features. There's the radiator cap is underneath the hood, which is the first car to ever do it. It's the first car that comes standard with a radio. Goes on and on and on. We don't know who designed the car, but whoever did a hell of a job.
It's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And the was it? I mean, was there a part of it that was toughest to restore? Things that were. What was the hardest part to find?
It's very hard to restore a car that there's no information, there's no comps, there's nothing to look at. So it's very difficult to restore a car like this.
The running board's next to the door as well. I mean, that seems extremely unique.
The more you look at this car, the more you see aviation. This car came out just after Lindbergh crossed the ocean. So the hero in the nation was aviators. And if you look at the running boards, you see an airplane wing. If you look at the dashboard, it has a tachometer, it has an altimeter in it. It looks like an airplane, and that's what they went after. It was a very valuable car at the time, $6,000 in 1930. Now let's relate that in today's dollars. You could have bought 3 houses in Cleveland Heights for $6,000.
Wow.
So it was a ton of money.
Well, it's absolutely gorgeous. You guys did a great job, and thank you so much for bringing it out today and showing it to us. It's amazing.
It's our pleasure.
What an unbelievable day here at the Cleveland All-Stars. If you didn't make it out here, you missed this beautiful blue 26 Peerless. Unbelievable, and all the cars we saw today. Got a lot of thanks to go around. Thanks to Derek, thanks to Bernie, thanks to the Crawford Automobile and Aviation Museum, thanks to the AACA, and thanks to you, everybody who watches Cruise In. Until next time, we'll see you.